when you're purchasing your property, you pay a little bit extra for a binder or a hold open that holds the title open essentially. And then you have a certain amount of time that you can then sell the property, and you don't have to pay for an owner's policy again. You just pay whatever the difference is in the value.
Today's webinar is Title Tips for Today's Investors. And I'm joined today by two very special guests, Colleen and Savon. I'll have them introduce themselves here in just a minute. But title is a topic that we can't avoid as real estate investors. Whether you're an agent, a wholesaler, a fixer flipper, whatever part of real estate you're in, title is part of real estate transactions. But what is title? How does it work? How do we work with our title reps? Where do they come into play? How do we leverage our title reps and our title companies and those resources to help with our deals? These are some of the questions that we'll talk about today, but we've brought, again, like I said, two title experts with us today to talk about these topics. Colleen and Savon, can you guys please talk a little bit about yourselves, introduce yourselves?
Yeah, absolutely. So Phil, thanks for having us here. We're really excited to be here. So I'm Savon Tavakaran, and I'm the Senior Vice President and Product Owner for Title Genius, which is a digital platform by Radiant Settlement Services, and it's designed to really simplify the home closing experience. I've worked in the real estate and mortgage tech industry for the last many years. Prior to Radiant, I worked at a real estate disruptor called Rex, where I led business development and also a lot of our non-brokerage services like title and escrow and home insurance. And then prior to that, I ran product partnerships at Blend, a digital mortgage point of sale provider.
Hi, everyone. I'm Colleen Strite. I'm the Vice President of Operations for Radiant Settlement Services. I've worked at several national title companies over the last 10 plus years. I'm also a licensed Pennsylvania attorney and a licensed title agent in 30 states. I'm really excited to be here. So thanks for having us today. It's a pleasure to be here and to educate investors a little bit more about the title and settlement process.
Yeah, thank you, Colleen, for being here. And guys, we're going to talk today about the basics of title, talk about transaction efficiency, some of the digital tools you can leverage. But let's go ahead and kick this off. What is title?
At its most basic, title insurance helps protect homeowners from past title problems related to the property, which become their problems once they acquire the home. So, some of the most common title insurance claims are for things like errors in the public records, fraud and forgery, liens that were undiscovered. And so title insurance, it's important to note, it's just a one-time cost, and it helps to protect the owner from all of these types of problems in the future and defending you against those problems if they may arise. And there's two main types of insurance policies. Well, it's the owner's policy and the lender's policy. So the owner's policy helps protect the homeowner against future claims, while the lender policy protects the lender against future claims. So there's two very separate policies. And, kind of in terms of how the process actually works in terms of acquiring title insurance, there's really 7 key stages. So first, when the sales contract is fully executed, then either the buyer or the seller, depending on the market, can choose a title provider. So there's certain states where it's customary for the seller to choose the buyer. Sometimes there's a seller or buyer attorney involved. And oftentimes it's whoever's paying for the owner's policy is the one who gets to select. So after kind of choosing the title provider, the next step is really the title search. And so, the contract is submitted to the title insurance provider, and then the title search is done to uncover any possible title defects. We look at all the public records, and then we look at kind of any associated risks that might affect home ownership rights to the property being acquired. Next step is the title commitment. And so that's really kind of like a promise that we will insure the property. And it also contains a lot of the terms and exclusions that will be in the actual title insurance policy. Moving to step 4 is resolving all the title issues. So, as stated before, there's a lot of common title issues that are seen. So there's errors in public records, there's the, instance of fraud and forgery, uncovered liens. And so you as the homeowner, as the investor, will work with your title insurance company, resolve any of those issues that are found. Going up step 5, we have closing. And so all parties get to review and sign the docs, usually with a notary and or an attorney. Then we move on to disbursement and recording. So this also varies quite a bit by market, but this is essentially the stage when all funds are collected and dispersed, and all the recordable documents like the deed and the security instrument are recorded in the public records. And then finally, we get to the policy issuance. And so then all the signed and recorded documents are reviewed and the title policies are issued. So that's kind of at a very high level, the 7 key steps to title insurance issuance.
Right. And so you do all those steps, but you also have to think about what type of transaction do you have? Are you paying cash? Is there financing? If you do have financing, what type of financing? Is it a private financer, federal banking institution? Are you using a mortgage broker? You also have to think about what type of property are you buying? Is it a single family home, multi-unit home, like a duplex or a triplex? Are you buying a condo? Are you buying one property, or are you buying multiple properties all during the same transaction? So if you're thinking about, financing versus cash, if you're doing financing, the lenders will usually require the borrower to get a loan policy, which Savin mentioned does not cover the purchaser. And then you as the borrower have to work on the timeline of the lender, provide all the necessary documentation. A cash transaction does not always require title insurance, but it is beneficial to protect the homeowner against claims or errors that have happened in the past that may have not been found prior to closing. And sometimes those can be fairly costly. Another thing to consider, was there probate or is it inherited property? For inherited properties, title insurance is especially important to protect from claims arising from the probate process, or really the lack thereof. Potential issues include, family disputes that come up. There may have been a missing heir. Are there outstanding mortgages or inheritance tax, or possibly an improper property transfer? I think title insurance is beneficial when there's a foreclosure in the chain of title to protect against previous owners, other liens, concerns about proper notice in the foreclosure process, outstanding utility, permits or zoning, property tax payments also should be reviewed. And foreclosures may involve complexities like the prior owner not vacating the property.
What's the appropriate time to start engaging with a title company? Does that vary depending on who you're working with? Let's talk a little bit about how you work with your title company. What's that process look like?
Yeah, I think knowing your title company up front is really important. So title is not thought about until you're under contract and you're well on your way, but it's really something I think you need to think about up front. A lot of states you can write your title company or your escrow officer into the contract. And so knowing who you want to work with and putting them into the contract is important. So I think about that first, especially if you've done some deals and you have a great relationship. You can often talk to your title company, your escrow officer, and talk about, potential deals that are coming through, and if they can give you an opinion on what they think, or maybe, if they have any information about this type of title issue that's come up before. So I think talking about title early is important, even though oftentimes it doesn't come until the end. It's really great to get that moving right up front.
Let's talk about how you choose a title company.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things to consider when you're looking for a title company. So price is really important to people. What are the title insurance rates? What are their settlement and escrow fees? What sort of coverage can you get? What's the protection level for the policy? Are you able to get an enhanced or homeowner's policy? If you're flipping a property, is there an option for a binder or hold open? If you're an investor that you do deals in multiple states, can the title company handle them across the board? Service is also really important. So are they responsive? Do you have an escrow officer that's going to answer your calls and get back to you quickly? Communicate things that are time sensitive so that you don't delay your closing. And then also technology, of course, is really important. Ways to maximize efficiency. Digital tools, automation. Do they have a website or an app? Is there electronic delivery of documents, funds? Do they have the ability for remote online notarization? That helps to kind of keep everything moving along. There's tight timelines, so you need technology to really kind of help move things and close on time.
If we could, we've got a bunch of questions if we want to take a stab at some of those.
Let's do it.
Okay, great. What is a binder/hold open option?
So that depends again on your state. So
And that's Illinois.
okay, so Illinois, I don't believe that's traditionally something available. If you're in other states like California, Colorado, I think Arizona, there's a number of states that do offer something like that. And so it means that you can, when you're purchasing your property, you pay a little bit extra for a binder or a hold open that holds the title open essentially. And then you have a certain amount of time that you can then sell the property, and you don't have to pay for an owner's policy again. You just pay whatever the difference is in the value. So you don't have to double pay for your owner's policy, and it just saves you a little bit of money because you're not having to pay essentially twice for something if you're buying and selling in quick succession. So a lot of times it's a 24-month period. So if you're buying, planning to flip, and then selling again, you can ask your title company if that's something that's available so that you can potentially save some money on your title costs.
How do you initiate the title relationship? Is it just signing up for like a title genius and starting the quote process? Should you reach out to someone directly?
There's multiple ways to engage. So oftentimes you can reach out to the local title rep, the inside sales team. So with Title Genius specifically, we also have a lot of great digital tools. So you might start by getting a quote, and then if you have questions about that quote, then you can talk to the inside sales team. And you can also even place an order if you're ready directly through the portal. So there's kind of like that full spectrum of, if you want a full digital experience, you can just talk to almost no one, you can place the order, but most people want handholding, right? And they want to be able to talk to an escrow officer. And so then you can call in, and we'll provide the phone number and as well as an email, but there's multiple ways to engage.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. Sean Young from Colorado, thanks for your question. When doing a double closing, what are the differences between dry funding and wet funding?
Double closings, I think, have a lot of different meaning, and I think with anything that you do, it's just really important that everyone is very clear and that everybody is documenting what they're planning to do. So when you're doing a double closing, in my experience, it can mean different things in different places, but a lot of times it just means that you're assigning them. So I've seen them as assignments. And so when he's talking about like a dry funding, and so I don't know if he means like selling to one entity and then flipping it to the next. And I think, again, it just is setting expectations. So what have all parties agreed to? Is it in writing? Has everybody signed off on that? And is everybody on board with it in the parties? And then have you talked to your title company about what you're planning to do? And I think those conversations up front with everybody and having clear documentation about it, I think is the best way to go.
All right. Michael, thank you so much for your question. Can you get a preliminary title search before you actually open the title? A lot of times this happens dealing with sellers that have a lot of hidden issues.
I know you all are going to be sick of me saying this, but it really does depend on the state. I know that no one wants to hear that, but it depends on the state and depends on custom and practice and regulation. So there are a lot of states that it is customary to get kind of a preliminary title done, but then again, some states require that to be paid up front. So certainly talk to your title company, your escrow officer, find out, what options are available for you. Maybe you can get one at no cost and it has just some basic information. You might have to pay for it up front and it can provide you more information. It really kind of depends on the state and what the state allows. But talk to your title company, talk to your escrow officer, see what they can help you with. If you're so inclined, there's a lot of great data online if you want to start digging into the public records. I find it very interesting. I know most people don't, but it's always fun to look around in public records and see what you can find. But really talk to your title company who are experts in that space and see, what options are available for you.
Ezra in Washington State has a strategy for probates. She's curious if there's states that are better or quicker at processing probates than others in your experience.
Maybe. I think it depends on how your property is held and what your seller did. So did your seller have a will? Did they not have a will? There's a number of ways to handle the probate process. In some states, you don't necessarily have to go through probate, depending on the value and the heirs involved. So I think there's different state requirements, but really I think the stem is from what did your seller look like at the time that they died and what did the estate look like. So If it's a messy probate, they didn't leave a will, they've got to find all these heirs. It's really the finding of the people and digging up all the heirs that usually takes the longest amount of time. So there's all kinds of rules depending on where you are, but I think a lot of it really just depends on what did it look like when your seller died and how long is it going to take to get that cleaned up.
I think that is all the questions we have right now. I think we'll call that one a wrap, guys. Thank you so much, both of you, for your time and for coming in here to be in the studio today. We really appreciate it. Lots of thanks in the chat. Anything else you guys want to say or close out with before we wrap up today?
I mean, I think especially for new investors, it's really important. Read all the docs, ask a lot of questions. There's no dumb questions. Don't hesitate. You need to learn, and a lot of this, it may seem daunting at first, but after a couple transactions, you'll be fine. I think one other thing that's probably worth mentioning is that a lot of people ask, like, why do some companies have cheaper rates? Like, why is there a difference? And so really it's, different title companies can use different underwriters, and each underwriter may file different rates. And so some of them also in particular states, you can file for digital discounts or certain kinds of rebates. So it's really important, and I encourage all the audience out there to shop around, because there's quite a bit of variability in pricing based on the underwriter, and look into the junk fees. Just really, educate yourself and make sure you're aware of all the options.
Appreciate the honesty there. Well, thank you everyone for attending today. This will be sent out and made available to you. Thank you, Colleen. Thank you, Sivan. Appreciate your time and expertise, and looking forward to doing this again in the future.